once we're okay. Thank you for joining us on this winter snow day. For those of you that are at home, thank you for joining us. If you're watching us on record, thanks for hopping back and being interested in what we're up to. As always, I am Sandra Santa Buckles. I am the PR and Development Specialist at Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. I have been working really hard to make sure that we're very transparent about what we're doing and try to break down some victims' rights in the state, things that are of interest. And today, Kurt and Kurt is our executive director, decided that we were going to bring you into some of the news that's been going on at Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. We've been super excited to grow this year. And so just wanted to share that with everybody here. There we go. It's having an issue with streaming on Facebook, but I think we've got it now. So without further ado, let's just hop right in. We grew because we got a grant, right? We got an increase in a grant.
We got a significant increase in the Victims of Crime Act grant. Victims of Crime Act has always been our main grant that we operate under, although we operate under a number of grants. But this year, there were additional funds available, and we got a huge portion of additional money, $1.1 million. And of course, when you apply for a grant like that, you make your proposal as to what you're going to do with it. Essentially, what we put in the proposal is to expand our operations. We are already the largest of any such organization in the entire country in terms of the amount of cases that we handle on a regular basis. We are essentially handling essentially 2,000 cases a year. 850 is the average new cases per year that we handle. There is no other organization in the nation that handles that many cases that is similar to us in what we do. So we're very proud of that. But this additional grant funding will allow us to vastly increase the amount of services that we are able to provide. And our plan is to stick with the program, not offer new and different things, but offer the same thing to more people. So along those lines, we have added 16 new people to our staff, or 16 new positions. I think 15 of them are filled at this time. And some of those, we also tried to overcome some of our internal problems. You know, we are so focused on getting the job done that we had really cut down the internal support system that we have to virtually zero. For example, everyone there is no secretarial anything within our organization. Everyone does their own typing and filing and things of that nature. Well, and research, and of course, for having 16 lawyers, there's a lot of research to be done. So we added in the new positions, not just attorneys. We added 4 new attorneys. We added not just victim advocates, we added 4 new victim advocates. But we added 2 paralegals and a couple of other support positions that were very important to us. In addition to that, one of the other, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that a lot of times when I talk about our organization, I always say like everyone is directly in contact with victims. Like all that we really have is attorneys, and even you, Kurt, you know, being our director as an attorney, and advocates. And then there was like me and one other employee that were like non-advocate attorneys, and that's me doing PR and development, social media, the website, all those things, events and fundraising and all those things. And then our CFO HR person, and then everyone else was just directly related. So, I mean, I think that this is a huge, I wanted to add that it's also a huge growth for us because we were only a staff of 20 something.
We were 21
21, and
now,
we increased by 15, which is almost double, which was a huge process in the holiday time, which was crazy, but we're getting through it.
yes. So what some of those other internal problems, just for those of you who don't know, a lot of this maybe people don't need to know, but the way that this organization works really is it unfortunately there are a number of absolute workaholics within our organization who see what needs to be done and do it without question, regardless of the timing and regardless of what else they have on their schedules. And it is admirable, but it is also a concern for the organization. So some of these new positions that we added are to try to diminish the workload on those absolute workaholics, and those really are the directors of the organization. Pauline Mandel, who is our director of legal services, Ellie Jones, who is our director of victim services, and Jennifer Abel, who is our director of finance and operations, and also Sandra is a workaholic in this, and especially in the sense that from the day she walked in the door, we loaded her up with many different hats to wear that she was aware of when she came in the door, but it still was a bit unfair. And we've gotten tremendous success from Sandra in a number of different ways, but the load is terribly heavy on her. So some of these positions, we have a new position, director of communications, who will take some of the load off of Sandra and Jennifer Abel. There is an operations assistant who will take some of the load off of Jennifer and some of the other operations people. There is an assistant within the legal division that will take some of the load there, and there are two paralegals, which is an absolute new territory for us as well. We've had various support positions in the past, but we've never had paralegals. And so we're extraordinarily pleased with the new people that we have hired so far, outstanding backgrounds and resumes. And the addition in funds also allowed us to accomplish one of the other goals. Funding of salaries is a difficulty in nonprofit organizations. And the problem is that you can get great people in to your organization. When they are recognized as being great, somebody comes along and offers them a greater salary elsewhere. And in our world, that is usually the state's attorneys who do that. So we set out last year with a goal of trying to get some sort of pay parity with the state's attorney's offices, so that it would be people would be less enticed to leave us and go elsewhere where they can make more money. Well, I wouldn't say necessarily we've completely accomplished that goal, but we have certainly diminished any difference between what we make and what they make in similar positions in the state's attorney's office. So in so doing, I think we've turned the tables, because we do have a number of other things that make us that give us an advantage in the world of employment that state's attorney's offices don't have. So I think it'll be a much less problematic situation that we lose people to state's attorneys. When we did this hiring of 15 recently, we actually stole a couple of employees, three that come to mind, from state's attorneys' offices. And
Well, we
we
were just
try to
taking
tell,
one back.
yes, that's true. Uh, I try to tell the state's attorneys that it's a good thing that they have their former employees working here, because we work with them on a regular basis, and it gives us a good, natural, immediate liaison to their organizations.
Yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have. It's unfortunate in that we end up losing and gaining people from the same kind of pool, but it is nice that it's all in, what's in the best interest of our clients and our victims. So, what do you do? You just But no, I
Yes.
think it's been a great addition, and we look forward to being able to run more succinctly and lighten the workload where it needs to be lightened. It was 4 attorneys, 5 advocates, I believe, 2 paralegals, and then 2
There you go.
admins and communication, and 1 communication person who will be taking over social media, newsletters, and outreach to the media. And yeah, we've been quite busy. I think that a lot of our followers have noticed in the past couple years, what we've been trying to put out into the world. And whenever I approach people about the work that this organization does, I always say that this organization has always just been busy doing the work, going to court, working the cases, working the load, dealing with clients. That it's never been an organization that pats itself on the back or really needs the accolades, but at the same time, it's good for people to know what we're doing, so that we can gain the support, not only in, financially, but also in legislation and some of our initiatives that we're doing to try to make things better for so many. So it's important to have that following and keep people engaged. And so hopefully we will continue to do so and continue to help even more people uh, within the year. So was there anything else that you wanted to talk about with the growth and goals?
Well, there are some other things that we that are changes for us within the organization along some of the lines that you mentioned. We have virtually never advertised in the past, and part of that has been that our people are busy enough. Uh, Sadly, there are many, many, many victims, more victims for us to serve than we are able to serve. But um, the other, of course, concern, as I mentioned, is that we wanted to devote all of our resources to solving the problems that we are given. Uh, Having said that, with this additional influx of grant money, for the first time, we have a significant advertising budget. And part of the purpose of that is that we have a lot of victims we need to now reach out to, uh, not just in a general sense, but in a specific sense, having to do with the clergy abuse matters that have arisen, and some of the great urgency in dealing with their situations over the past year. That is one of the initiatives that we took on about 2 years ago, uh, having to do with the Attorney General's report of clergy abuse matters in the Archdiocese of Baltimore. We have made massive inroads in 2023 into and partnerships with the people in the Attorney General's office in dealing with those things. To some degree, it has given us more of a high profile within the news media than we've ever had before, or perhaps I should say until that we've had since 1982 and 1983, where I think our profile was still a little yet higher. And so we look forward with our new communications person, with an advertising budget, uh, to raising our profile on the radar scope more in 2024. And I lost your audio.
Sorry, working from home,
Yeah,
of course. So,
there you go.
home noises and kids home from school because of the snow day. So, there's that. So we have a couple events that we wanted to put on your radar out there. Wanted to get into the first, the Byron Warnken. We, as you all may know, we honored him on our 40th anniversary gala, which was the first gala of its kind for this organization. We created the Roberta Roper Lifetime Achievement Award for people who've dedicated their lifetime to helping crime victims. And Byron Warnken was definitely on the radar and always, would be, for the role that he played in making sure that there are victims' rights back in the 80s and 90s. Unfortunately, Byron passed away before we could present him with the award. Just very like a couple weeks before, I think, our ceremony, his lovely daughter and wife received the award for him. And I'll let you take the rest from there.
Yes. Well, Byron was absolutely beloved professor of criminal law at the University of Baltimore Law School when I attended there, and for many years before that, and since that. And he also made his mark in any number of different ways in criminal and other law in Maryland. Very well known, very well respected. He wrote the book on criminal law in Maryland, if you will. There's a
Literally.
three book criminal law series that is the definitive word in criminal law in Maryland. He also was absolutely instrumental in getting the crime victims' rights portion of the Maryland Constitution in place. Without his help, Roberta says, often when she speaks, without his help, it never would have happened, because he was such a well-respected voice within the realm of criminal law, and when he spoke and spoke of the need of it, people listened. So we thought it was very appropriate to give him the award. We also have worked to commission a portrait of Byron to be hung at the University of Baltimore Law School. There is a moot courtroom there where young law students learn to operate in a courtroom environment. It's named after Byron, and this will be framed on the wall outside of the moot courtroom. The unveiling of it, that we're very excited about, should take place in February. The date has not been selected yet. It may go beyond February at this point, or maybe into March. I'm not sure. But I would encourage anyone in the Baltimore area who wants to attend. It's a free event. We are trying to raise money at the event, but that's all voluntary. If you want to come, don't let that deter you. The money raised at the event is to pay for the portrait itself, and also to pay. There is a Byron Warnken Scholarship Fund at the University of Baltimore. So the funds raised will 100% either go directly for the payment of the portrait or into the scholarship fund. And as I said, it's really a free event. There'll be a pitch to ask people to donate at the event, but don't let that deter you. Come to the event if you're ready, willing, and able.
Thanks. So yes, we're waiting on a date from that. It was moved, which doesn't bother me any because I really like warmer days and hate, going anywhere when it's super cold because I'm just that way.
So I neglected to mention that Byron spent many years on our board of directors as well.
Yeah, and both of his children and his wife, all law. all like Bonnie, his wife, is an attorney, and his son and daughter are both attorneys as well. And his daughter is the director of a program there at University of Baltimore Law School. So it's all very tight knit there. So yeah, that'll be great. So just keep an eye out. We'll put out some additional info once we have a date firmed up for that, whether it be in February or further on in the calendar year. So just keep an eye open for that. We've got a walk coming up. It'll be our third walk. If you haven't seen our social media posts and things like that on it yet, the date is Saturday, April 20th at Watkins Regional Park. Watkins Regional Park is where we've had it for the past 2 years, so this will be our third year in the same location. It's a nice park. It's wooded. It's free. It's a free event to come out. We will have nonprofits tabling there, so you can learn about other nonprofits or organizations that could be of assistance. And then we have a very thoughtful walk planned. It's a 3.1 miles, so if you're a runner, you can run it. We're working on getting it timed for this year. The timed portion will be a cost, but otherwise, if you're just walking it and don't want to be timed, then it is a free event. If you want to time yourself, it's a free event. But more details on all that are coming up. But super excited about that going on. The theme for this year is how would you help? And I am currently wrapping my head around what that's going to look like, because my thought process is with crime victims, attorneys help and nurses help and doctors help, but also regular people can help as well. Something might happen to your neighbor or your family member, and how you support them is, says a lot about a person. And so I really want to wrap my head around the idea of how would you help? And so stay tuned to what comes out of my brain on that. Kurt, did you want to say anything about the walk?
Well, the theme is very interesting, but what I immediately think of is some of the cases that both you and I have been involved in one fashion or another, where community members show up in court to support the person. It doesn't have to happen all the time, obviously, and it depends on what the crime is and whether the victim is looking for that sort of support. But it's absolutely heartwarming to walk in and see people from the community, people who sometimes don't even know the victim that well, who are there because they wanted to say, we care. So an interesting aspect of it. We've had 2 of these walks. They have been stellar, both of them, both in their attendance. And when Sandra walks on the scene in the morning, the clouds part, the rain stops, and the walk goes on. And it's a terrific setup. Come out and join us. It's a great way to leave the wintertime behind and start springtime things.
That's so funny that you said that, because I definitely remember last year it was like supposed to be these huge monsoon storms, and all of a sudden it was like a beautiful day, and it did. The clouds parted, the silver lining popped through, and it was a sunny, warm day. It was crazy. And hopefully, the weather's with us this year. I would love to see a full turnout. I think the one thing that's really nice about this walk is a lot of what we deal with is so heavy. It's all people who've been violated in some way, whether it be homicide or whether it be domestic abuse or whether it be, just robbery or, home invasion. I mean, everything, all crimes make you feel unsafe in some kind of way. And sometimes it's such a heavy way to be introduced to someone. And, you get to talking to these families and people who have experienced crime in some way. And that you were brought together because of something that was so ugly. But it's nice to be able to spend a day and share laughs and maybe dance and take a walk, and enjoy weather, hopefully, fingers crossed, enjoy weather together and really, create that sense of community that's outside of the courtroom and outside of, planning what your next steps are for a legal case. And so in that capacity, it's so great to see people, at walk. I often look around and I see Kurt or Ellie or Pauline, really like talking with other people and like sharing hugs and laughs. And it's such a great way to, I want to say start the new year when really it's April. So it's like we're already past the first quarter, but it feels like the start of the year because it is spring. But it's just a nice way to kind of come together, and possibly even quietly supporting other victims that have possibly experienced the same things, kind of bringing them together, even if they're not completely socializing with each other. They all know that they're there for a reason, and it's a good feeling to have. So definitely highly recommend, 10 out of 10, as the kids say. My daughter says that, 10 out of 10. To come out. It is free. So although we always love donations because that's how we grow and that's how we keep things running. It is free. The more the merrier. And we're going to be ordering our shirts and we're going to have stuff and all the things that go with a walk. So hopefully it's not too tough of a drive. It's in Upper Marlboro. It's right off the Beltway. So hopefully it's somewhat centralized. I would love to have multiple walks, but that's just way too much. So we just have the one. That's all that we really have. So, all right, moving on to priorities.
Okay.
All right,
And
so
maybe one thing that's related to the things we've already talked about, and that is, we are moving from a small office in Baltimore to a palace in Baltimore. We have an incredible space in a high-rise building. It's one of those things that I'm not sure how we got so lucky under the circumstances, but a beautiful new extraordinary space just in time. Of course, one of the reasons we wanted to move was because we didn't have room to accommodate some of our new staff that will be in Baltimore. But fantastic new space. The address is 1 North Charles Street, Suite 700. We're in the process of moving there this week, and we are planning sometime in the near future to have sort of a housewarming party up there, or whatever you might call it, grand opening, if you will.
Yeah. A
And
grand
it's
reopening.
2 blocks from the Baltimore City Courthouse, and we are thrilled, absolutely thrilled. It's another great milestone of development for the organization. So on from
That's
there
exciting.
to
That's definitely exciting. I ask our current Baltimore staff, and they're super excited. And our new staff that we brought on that will be in that space are super excited. So good stuff. Good stuff.
so on from there to priorities, and
Yes. So
maybe talking about the legislature and things of that nature.
yeah, so Kurt and I, when we sat down thinking about what we wanted to do for January for Lunch and Learn, this was definitely one of the topics. We thought that we would do this state of MCVRC, if you will, just to kind of update people like what we've been up to and why you should support us and all the good things. Because sometimes that doesn't convey properly, like you don't really kind of get what we're doing. And a lot of what we do on a regular, well, not what I do, but what our attorneys and our advocates do, we can't talk about cases that are currently in court. So you're not going to hear what we're up to. We want to make sure that trials go well and details are left out of the public because that's the nature of our work. But at the same time, we want to make sure that people out there, that we can break down some of that legalese and bring topics that matter to the forefront. We want to make sure that we are staying on top of those things and sharing. So let's talk about line item.
Okay, but let's talk about the legislature in general first, and the reason I want to put
Okay.
it that way is because one of our legislative heroes, a guy named C.T. Wilson, for those of you who are not in the Baltimore area, the Baltimore Sun chose him to be the Marylander of the Year for 2023. For just the short version of the story is some of his legislative proposals that helped crime victims in being able to bring lawsuits when they have been victims of child sex abuse. He was also one of our honorees last year with the Roberta Roper Award, and we are also presenting him with a portrait that. And I want everyone to know we don't use MCVRC funds to fund these portraits. We have raised some outside funds for these. It does not come from any money that anyone donates to MCVRC or grant funds or anything of that nature. But we are presenting him with a portrait. My understanding is that they are arranging for us to do that in Annapolis on the floor of the House of Delegates. At this very moment, we don't know a date. It is also going to be a very fun event, open to the public, as every day is open to the public in Annapolis. And so if people are able to attend, that would be a fun, great thing. We'd love to see you down there. We'll let you know when that occurs. In the meanwhile, we talk about our legislative priorities. And oh geez, I bet you won't remember this name either, but I like the quote of the 1930s Oklahoma humorist. In fact, the Tulsa airport is named after him. Can't remember his name, but one of his things that he said was that the life, liberty, and property of every citizen is in jeopardy as long as the legislature is in session. And it's a very true thing. I said to someone the other day, we often crow about the fact that over 41 years, we have built the body of law that is Maryland crime victims law in Maryland. We have over 100 pieces of legislation that we championed to be passed into law in Annapolis. Having said that, we've probably done more good with the 1,000 bad things that we have stopped from being passed in Annapolis. And so that's sort of the reference to the, your life, liberty, and property are in jeopardy when the legislature's in session. So we have some priorities that we are looking for. One of them is to shore up the funding of our organization. Yes, we received an increase in funding, but grant funding is never certain. And we can't tell from 1 week to the next what will be there in the next financial year that we come to. And so we're asking the legislature to take out some of that uncertainty. It's not fair to our employees to not know, what's going to happen in the coming years. It's not easy for us to plan. We want them to recognize the good work that we do and put their money where their mouth is and support us with what they call a line item. And that essentially puts us into the Maryland budget. There is nothing permanent about a line item, but it's certainly more permanent than counting on the grants to be all the same next year as they were this year. So that's our number one priority. Our number two priority that we have in Annapolis is legislation that will further support the fact that we are entitled to a voice in things, because that's come under fire in some cases recently. Those of you who have followed a case having to do with a defendant by the name of Adnan Syed and the Lee family, the victim's family, brother of Heyman Lee, who was murdered some 24 years ago, I think. Uh, um, in front of Maryland's High Court now are some questions about how much victims are allowed to participate in various processes. And I can tell you the short version of the story is there are times at which it is not appropriate for victims to be and their advocates to be on their feet and arguing things. And there are other times at which it's absolutely crucial to fairness and justice that we be allowed to participate. And the forces that array against us are always pushing for us to have as little input as possible, and we have to push back. And that's happening in the Adnan Syed case, but we would like to ensure that there are not problems with that by going to the legislature and letting them rewrite the law in a little clearer fashion, that we are not just to be informed and we're not just to be allowed to attend, but that we are allowed to be heard on issues that will affect things like the outcome of sentences that have already been rendered, for example. Not so much situations that occur before the determination of guilt or innocence, but things that are beyond that in the process, that we be allowed to make our legal arguments. And part of that is because we have entered a new era of criminal law in which the prosecutor is not always playing the role that a prosecutor historically did, of trying to keep the bad guys off the street and vindicate the rights of the crime victims. They have strayed into the role of trying to oftentimes trying to release people who not just innocent people, but guilty people as well, from prison in a fashion that runs very contradictory to what crime victims want and need, and sort of also ignores a lot of the reasons that have been traditionally seen for penalties and penology in the past.
Right. So I guess I wanted to break that down a little bit because I know what you're saying, but I want to make sure that people that are watching also understand what you're talking about. So in the Adnan Syed case, there was a crime show that kind of like exposed some clues or hints or whatever that was left out of the trial in which Syed was sentenced. When the state's attorney's office kind of found out what was going on, and correct me if I go astray here, they kind of let him out of jail. They pretty much were like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're doing this on Monday, right? In the meantime, the victim's family had moved from the area and were no longer in the vicinity. They were notified, I guess on a Friday to be in
Yes.
court on a Monday, which did not allow them to take off of work, book a flight because they were somewhere on the West Coast or something like that. And so it really was quite humbling for us as an organization that has been fighting for victims' rights since Roberta and Vince, our founders, were pushed out of the courtroom when Stephanie was murdered. And this is like the ultimate like slap because the family had no say so. They didn't get to hear, they didn't get to listen. And in that aspect, they were not treated with dignity and respect, which is part of crime victims' rights, correct?
Yes, all that's very true. I want people to understand that it is completely separate issues from whether Adnan Syed is guilty or innocent, or, should ultimately be released or not be released.
Right.
What's at issue here is what sort of notice are the victims entitled to? What sort of participation are they entitled to, regardless of the merits of the case that's going on? And that's where our organization stands. We
Right.
have written a friend of the court brief, an amicus brief, they call them, so that our views are known to the judges who are determining this in what is now called the Supreme Court of Maryland. And the Lee family was represented by a very adequate's not the right word, very, very good
Stellar.
counsel. Yes. In the Supreme Court as well. And I was able to attend back in, I'm going to say August, the oral argument that was made in the case. Usually you can't tell how a case is going to come down just by the reactions of the judges on the bench, but I thought this was different. I looked at what those judges were doing and saying on the bench, and I thought, we have a winner here. And so we are waiting to see if if my instincts are right or not at this point. But I have a good degree of confidence that uh, that the crime victims' rights are going to get some level of vindication by the Syed case in front of Maryland Supreme Court. What that takes the form of is another story. There's any number of different degrees that they could be on our side or not on our side. And I am hoping for an outstanding victory that will make it clear that we are entitled not just to be there and fill a chair, but also to participate in the arguments in those certain circumstances that I was talking about. And I think that
Right.
that will take, I think that that's what's coming, but we're also going to go to Annapolis and look for that as legislation.
Okay. And so that just brings me to a couple other cases, like you said, Kurt, that you and I have worked on. And it reminds me of the silencing that was happening earlier in 2023 with the parole commission, where we ended up doing something there as well, where they were trying to silence victim voices for parole hearings, I believe it was. And then that happened in Charles County. So not the same, but the same in that, like Kurt said, we are trying to make sure that victims are represented and that they have their opportunity to speak and to be heard, and that they're treated with dignity and respect, so that they will feel that justice is served. And our role in this is not guilty or innocent. It is to make sure that victims have a voice and survivors have a voice in court. Right?
Very, very true. Very true. And yes, the incident, the case that you're referring to that we had in Charles County had to do with the parole commission passing a regulation that would have seriously limited the value of the input of the crime victims in parole proceedings.
Right.
And that is up on appeal right now. The Judge Brown in Charles County gave us an outstanding victory, but that victory has been appealed, and we're working on that case at the middle appellate court in Maryland, which is now called the Appellate Court of Maryland.
So it's something that we definitely want to keep our eyes on to make sure that victims continue to have a voice, because it does seem like a lot of things are moving towards victims' voices are inconvenient for court, and that is not what our Constitution says, and that's not where our organization stands. And we'll continue to do what we need to do to make sure that victims have voices. So anywho, thanks for that wrap up. Did you want to go on to, did you have more on that, or did you want to move on to the CICB?
Let's go to the CICB.
Okay.
Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. Maryland's Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. Every state has a Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, as far as I know, and this is true really because of some assistive legislation on the federal level that provides some funding to states if they have a criminal injuries compensation board. So the purpose of the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board is to sort of act as a last resort for crime victims to get some money for some of the injuries, the damages that they have been inflicted upon them when there's no other means of getting those funds. And the most simple way to look at an example of what they are given would be medical expenses and funeral expenses. If there was a murder, or funeral expenses, and you're not speaking again. I can't hear you again.
Sorry, kids.
Oh, okay, I got you. So, Maryland's Criminal Injuries Compensation Board has a lot of problems, but one of them that we have identified over the years is that they interpret the law so that if anybody's got any other means of getting any money, then they're not entitled. And the worst way that plays a role out is we have had a number of cases in which parents have been murdered, and the children ought to be entitled to their lost wages from the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. But the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board says no, because they are getting a small benefit from the Social Security Administration that a child gets when a parent dies, that takes the place of criminal injuries compensation. We have had similar situations where there is life insurance, and it was never from our perspective, the law's position, it was never the intention of the law to say that if there was any money ever available, that criminal injuries couldn't be paid out. What was intended was something that said if there was money that was paid out as a result of the crime, that money would take the place of criminal injuries compensation. Well, it's stretching the definition to say that Social Security money is paid out because of the crime. It's paid out because someone died. It's not, you could be hit by a car or struck by lightning and it would pay out. So it's not paid out because of the crime. It's paid out because of the death. And the same thing goes for life insurance. So it's an important change. It may be a small one that affects only a small number of crime victims, but it's an extraordinarily important change for these young people whose parents get taken away from them, and other similar circumstances.
Right. So let me break that down just a little bit. So CICB, the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, is a mechanism in which victims of, it's separate from court. It's a separate application process. We actually did a lunch and learn on CICB. I think it was December of last year, 2022, before Richard Hoffman left. And we did talk about how long it takes. So, there are some things going on there with the processes of, the application. But it's a separate venue in which victims of crime can request for funds to be reimbursed, if you will, including funeral services, in which, like, you have a receipt and you turn it in as something as a benefits request. And what's going on is that they are, if you have the means, then they are, what Kurt is saying is that if you have the means financially, then you're not eligible. So regardless of whether a crime was inflicted upon you, say, for example, something happens to, my mother, and her life insurance is $50,000. That $50,000, her intention was for me to kind of, buy a new car or pay off bills or whatever it is that I wanted, that, I want to spend the money on versus funeral services. And CICB is possibly, in some cases, reading the regulation in that because you have financial means because of life insurance, you're no longer eligible for compensation through their venue.
Yeah, more or
Is
less.
that succinct? Okay.
You've got it pretty well. Yes.
So because insurance was in place, or what have you, or life insurance, or someone has money in savings, it doesn't negate the fact that a crime has occurred and your family or whoever's kind of like left behind or what have you is now responsible for these costs because of the crime versus things that are put in place because things are put in place for as a safety net, like life insurance or savings or what have you.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
harming people to actually put things in place because then they're not eligible for CICB, possibly.
Very, very true.
Okay.
So let me jump quickly. I know we're starting to run out of time, but let me jump quickly to another issue in the legislature for the year. And we were discussing before we went on camera here. We often tell people about the 100+ pieces of legislation we've had passed, and I remarked that we've probably done more good by the 1,000+ pieces of legislation that were bad that we have opposed and kept them from becoming law over the years than we have by the 100+ that we had passed. It's every year the same. We have to go through the same process. I have come to learn and believe that there are very well-intentioned people who are just trying to do things that aren't going to work and don't really make sense. And a large part of that I think everyone realizes in the last, say, 5 to 10 years has been completely loosening up the juvenile justice system, taking serious crimes that would normally be tried in the adult system, putting them back into the juvenile system, and finding other means to sort of diminish the consequences for anybody who was under the age of 18 or even close to the age of 18 when they committed an offense. Those, in my view, those remedies, they're still there in Annapolis. There's still plenty of proposals in Annapolis, but the pendulum is swinging back the other way. They're turning into disfavor, and the reason that they're turning into disfavor is because they don't work. And they not only do they not work, they cause bigger problems than we had before. They cause disrespect for lawfulness, out of control situations where you have carjackings off the scale. You have complete and utter lawlessness, such as the mobs who go into retail establishments and take what they want and leave, things of that nature. So that there are pieces of legislation in Annapolis that we will be opposing that are still along the lines of trying to make things easier for and less consequential for those who are juveniles who commit offenses. We will be looking for more accountability, more responsibility, and there are a lot of sad stories out there having to do with juveniles who commit offenses. Nothing that either side in these arguments does is going to change any of that. But what must change is to discourage those who haven't committed those offenses, or even discourage the ones who have committed some offenses from doing more. And the only proven way of doing that is letting them be responsible for the consequences of what they have done to themselves and to society. And we intend to help it swing.
I appreciate that, Kurt. I think this has been heavy on my mind. I think I think this was like when I first started, this was really kind of like on the docket, a couple years ago. And it's like we're guinea pigs, like they're like, let's try this and see if we can, make things better. And accountability for young people has been diminished. And I think that when people know the law and they know how easy it may be to get away with things that are not right, certain individuals take advantage of that system. And it's unfortunate that it's that way. But facts are facts. And we saw it ourselves with cases that we saw where the trigger man is a juvenile because the other people are older. And we've seen cases like that, in-house, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that these young people are doing that. But I mean, it's also hard because unfortunately the victims of the crime are also young people. And it's quite disturbing as someone who has, I own a couple of young people you probably saw floating around here on in the background. But I mean, it's unfortunate. And I think that society is seeing that increase in crime in young people. And hopefully, we can kind of put a handle on that and really try to put things in place that make more sense and hold everyone accountable. Because I think that's a big thing, is being accountable for your actions, regardless. So thanks for bringing that one up. Was there any other? We've got about 3 minutes before we sign off and jump into our next meeting.
I guess, let me jump back to the same subject to tell people one of the most disturbing cases that I have seen in our 41-year history, and reminding people I've been there for our 41-year history. We're on our 42nd year now, I guess.
Yep.
Was a case we had in which 4 young people were shot on the basketball court of a park.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
2 of them died. One of them was permanently injured, to my recollection. Maybe both of the other ones, I'm not sure. And as a result of some of these new initiatives of the manner in which you treat juveniles, the offenders, both offenders, there were 2 people charged with the offense, spent less than 9 months in juvenile detention before being released. And even more disturbing than that, and that's for 2 murders, as I said, even more, and shooting 4 people. Even more disturbing than that is that their gang was on YouTube celebrating their release, chanting their rap song that they made up about the event, chanting the name of the victims on the rap song.
Yeah.
So
I remember seeing that. That was rough.
It's just
Well, we won't give
crime.
them any accolades because we don't want people to subscribe to that type of.
It's a prime example of how this has gone so awry.
Yeah.
And it's well-intentioned people, but that doesn't mean we
Yeah.
don't have to stop it.
Yeah. So there's definitely more, to that. And thank you for sharing that. We are going to take an active stance on those juvenile issues. I guess that's it for us because we're at 12:59 at this point. We're going to give you guys back. Well, we're not giving you anything back. We're going to take every last minute that we have. Thank you for joining us and learning about what we are up to. We appreciate your support as always. It is because of the support of our community, our sponsors, our followers, people that know what we do, that we're able to help more people and we're able to continue on into our 42nd year. We look forward to the work that we do and making a difference in victims of crime. And we appreciate you being here. If you have any questions for us, if you have a topic for a lunch and learn, if there's something that you want to learn about, please let us know. We are constantly trying to talk about different ideas on what we can share. There's so much information out there. We just want to make sure that we are servicing our community. So thank you for your support again, and we look forward to next month. All right, stay tuned, and thanks, Kurt, and I'll see you in a minute. Bye.
I'll see you.